from your confirmation to the institution of the Supreme Court itself, we hear a lot about the collegiality of the justices on the one hand, but year after year we see and read quite fractured opinions with sometimes sharp language and concurrences and dissents. When you're working through a case for a decision, how do you decide whether or not it's going to be worthy of a concurrence or dissent? And in doing so, does the tone of the opinions impact or reflect in any way on the personal working relationship of the justices?
Well, as to choosing whether or not to write a dissent or a concurrence, I assess whether or not it will annoy my colleagues. No, I don't do that. Some do annoy them, but I don't do that. I think it's an individual thing. I don't write dissents or separately just to be writing.
Good afternoon. At 32, he ran for and won an open state district judge seat in San Antonio. And in the mid-1980s, it was unheard of for a Republican to win that bench. 6 years later, Senator Cornyn was elected to the Texas Supreme Court. And in 1990, it was almost unheard of for a Republican to win a statewide seat. And we should never forget that it is John Cornyn and the men and women that swept into office with him in those years are the reason that conservative government in Texas is first a model to the rest of the country, and second, something that we almost take for granted here almost 30 years later. Magna Carta is Latin for Great Charter. Anywhere that there is a written constitution that has actual force and effect, the hand of Magna Carta is in play. In form, it is simply an agreement between King John I and a group of barons who were in open rebellion against him at the time. In substance, it embodies the idea that the king and the government are not above the law. And so with that, it blazed the path forward to the idea of rule of law in modern government. King John agreed to Magna Carta in 1215. Successive kings would be required to agree again to Magna Carta's terms, typically in times of later turmoil, usually to support requests for a new set of taxes that the king at the time wanted. With our heroes properly introduced, it's time to meet our heroines in the time of revolution, the Schuyler sisters. Angelica, Eliza, say it with me, and Peggy. Their song notes the different treatment of women and men in these times. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and when I meet Thomas Jefferson, I'm compel him to include women in the sequel. Work.